Hi, welcome to another episode of Almost Lost to Time. I am your host, Tim, and today we wanted to do something a little different. If you've been following the show, you know we've been discussing old 70s, 60s, 70s movies, car chase movies. I actually wanted to do something a little different this time because this time of year I wanted to, or this time of year was when one of my favorite comedians was taken away from us too early, and I figured that I wanted to do something kind of, keeping his name out there so he doesn't, get lost. And he wasn't incredibly famous. I mean, if you knew him, you knew him, you loved him. If you didn't, I'm sure you've heard his voice, either being on The Simpsons in the early years, or he was on the sitcom News Radio, which is one of my favorite sitcoms. If you've never seen News Radio, I highly recommend checking that out. But we're going to be talking about Phil Hartman today because the anniversary of his passing is the 28th of May, and I wanted to do something, like I say, to commemorate him and let him know that he's not forgotten amongst us small people that basically grew up watching him. I first discovered him on Saturday Night Live, as most people who became Phil Hartman fans, they caught him on Saturday Night Live. He was one of my favorites. He wasn't the church chat, didn't have the Dana Carvey, the super over the top impressions he can do. He was the everyday man comedian, where he had such a range of just being whatever he needed or whatever they needed him to be. He could do that. His voice work was just kind of what I modeled myself. If I ever became a voice actor, I would have wanted to have his degree, because if you watch the True or the Deep Thoughts, that was him. And now it's time for Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. I mean, that was Phil Hartman all the way. So he did the voiceover work. One of my favorite sketches, he was the anal retentive chef. That one was always fun. Doing chef, like the TV chef sketch, where he'd just have his little chef hat on and his old apron and his little glasses, and he'd be step by step going through processes of making things and cutting an onion. I always remember cutting an onion, and he'd be like, now we slice the onion and we'll take this discarded part and put it in our disposal bag. And it's a little paper bag, and he'd put all the onion skins in there, and then you fold your bag up nice like so, and obviously fold it up, and then you'd be like, well, I don't like that, so let's put it in another trash bag. That way none of the oils from the onion skin will seep into our work area, because you want to make sure you have a clean and sanitary work area. And so you would just do that over and over on every little thing that he would be preparing. And just, I think it was early 90s, and it's just so funny just seeing just so simple, but yet so comical, and so he had a couple sketches like that. And then the other one that I always loved was the unfrozen caveman lawyer, and the gists of it was he was a caveman, and scientists found him, and then they unthawed him, and then after his thawed out process, he goes to law school and becomes unfrozen caveman lawyer. And then of course it cuts to the sketch where he's in court arguing cases of whatever, a divorce or bankruptcy or what have you, and he'd be cross-examining the witness and just going all, like lawyers do, going for the throat. And then the prosecutor would be like, objection, and the judge, well, watch your language for unfrozen caveman lawyer. And his line was always like, but I'm a caveman. I don't understand these fancy techniques and words you use, and I'm just a caveman. My frontal lobe hasn't fully developed yet. And then it'd cut off to another, cast member. They'd be going on, and cut back to him, and he's on a cell phone, and the judge would be like, caveman, what are you doing on that cell phone? And his reply, but I'm a caveman. I don't understand the crazy voices coming from this box here. They make no sense to me. And then it cut to, okay, well, pick me up by 5 and hang up. And so, so yeah, it's comic gold. I mean, it's the little stuff that, it's so stupid, but it's funny, and so we watched him on there, and he was also wrote the movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure with Paul Rubens, and he actually had a small scene in that movie, and that's one of my favorite movies as a kid. I remember when the previews for that movie came out, and I was just so psyched, and I believe that was 1985, and back then, I had to get one of my parents to take me to the movies because, I didn't have any money, and I always remember a movie I really wanted to see. My dad would tell me that, you need to get a so-and-so mark on an upcoming quiz because I was never really good in school, and so I would study and get these marks, and he would begrudgingly have to take me to these movies. I wonder if, of course he wanted me to succeed, but sometimes I wonder if he just thought, well, man, if I just make this goal too hard for him to attain, I won't have to sit through Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But nope, he stood, was true to his word, and we went and saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I'm sure he didn't like it. But for a 12-year-old kid, that was comedy was king for me, and just knowing years later that Phil Hartman had his fingerprints on that script, helped Paul Rubens write it, was just even more enjoyable for me. And of course, seeing him in Three Amigos, another one of my favorite movies growing up, he also had a little role in that movie as well. And I always loved, no matter how small his role was, he was always memorable to me just because he would have such a deadpan delivery, or he'd be the goof or whatever. His range was just so wide like that everything I saw him in, like I say, even if it was for a scene, even if he just had one line, it's like, all right, Phil Hartman, right on. I was rooted for him to get more work and become bigger than he was, but unfortunately that didn't pan out for him. But he did enough where I can still watch him and still, revel in his genius, and his comedic timing is always just so good that I just enjoy it. And like I say, he was Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz on The Simpsons, and just if things would have worked out where he, was still alive, just he would have been such a more dominant presence on that show. And I was reading that when Matt Groening was creating the Futurama, he had created the role of Zap Brannigan for Phil Hartman, and I just would have loved to see how that would have turned out, because Zap Brannigan is one of my favorites, if not, yeah, he's probably my favorite. Bender's a really close second. However, if Phil Hartman was able to do or to be alive for Zap Brannigan, that would have been awesome. I gotta say, I would have been a bigger Futurama fan than I am. Yeah, Futurama's nice, but it's not one of my all-time favorites, but that's okay. So, and then of course he, like I say, he did one starring role he had with Sinbad in 1995 called House Guest. It's not a great movie, but it's got enough Phil Hartman in there to kind of tone down the goofiness that was Sinbad. If you are unaware of who Sinbad was, he's a stand-up comedian from the late 80s and 90s. Kind of made a start in the Cosby Show spin-off, The Different World, and he's okay. I never disliked him. He wasn't ever one of my favorites, though, but just kind of a little, off the top, a little too much for me. I like in your face, but I don't know, just goofy in your face. It's weird. It's just how the delivery that he has is just, I don't know, it just doesn't fall for me. And again, that's just me. I like what I like, and things I don't like, I'll give them a chance, but if I don't like something for a couple times, it's kind of like, whatever. But like I say, I was never disliked Sinbad, but he was never really my, ooh, Sinbad, we got to check this out. So, but, actually, to say that, if he has Phil Hartman in a movie with him, then yeah, I'll check it out. Because like I say, it was, it was an okay movie. I ended up buying it on DVD just because I wanted to have more of the Phil Hartman library around. So if I was ever, I guess, hankering for, some Phil Hartman, then, always pop in some House Guest and check it out. And like I say, it's not his best, but it'll do in a time of pinch, or a time of need, when you just need something to, I guess, take your mind off of whatever you got going on. And, of course, I had mentioned news radio, which it's a shame that show really didn't become, I would never expect it to be a huge Seinfeld / Friends or anything like that, but it definitely had the opportunity, or the cast, I should say, to at least get a bigger following than what it got. It's one of those shows that did go on for about 4 seasons. It did just enough where they could bring it back, but it wasn't huge where it was a definite, yeah, you're definitely coming back. So we kind of had to wait after every season was over throughout the summer, thinking, God, is news radio coming back? I hope news radio comes back. And, as I said, it did 4 seasons, which unfortunately Phil was killed after the 4th season. So they had one more season with a replacement as kind of a, thank you type of thing, with John Lovitz replacing, I shouldn't say replacing. He was added to the cast. He by no means could ever replace Phil Hartman. And I've always, John Lovitz is John Lovitz. I have nothing, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call myself a fan of John Lovitz. I've had multiple conversations with people about John Lovitz, and the consensus we all seem to fall on is his work on Saturday Night Live in the mid 80s was great. Maybe here or there, something he popped up in was okay, but overall it's kind of like, meh, I could do without. Like I said, I don't want to be hating on John Lovitz, but I felt when they replaced the Phil Hartman with another cast member that, yeah, everyone, if you're, I guess, Phil Hartman and John Lovitz were friends from the Saturday Night Live days, and this was kind of John's way of paying respect to Phil, and then also kind of therapy, because he lost his real close friend, and so they kind of, I guess, killed 2 birds with 1 stone, and it's fine. It is what it is. I'm not one of those who's going to cry about something that's long since have moved on, and it's been canceled, and people don't really talk about it very much. Shoot, I think you can find it, find the news radio reruns on. Let's see if we can find news radio. Give it a little. Shed some light on that. I found it on one weird, I shouldn't say weird, small streaming platform. I don't even remember what the heck it was called. So apparently you can find it on Pluto. So if you're interested in news radio, I would highly check it out. It's very funny. Like, I enjoy work comedies, and I enjoy shows based in New York City, and this is both of them. And it also is a AM news radio station, obviously by the name, news radio, but sometimes you need those dots connected. As far as the cast goes, like I said, there's Phil Hartman, you got Dave Foley, Kids in the Hall of Fame, awesome. Maura Tierney, she's great. Andy Dick, before he became a fucking weirdo psycho pulling his dick out in front of strangers and shit. Stephen Root probably plays my favorite TV boss, billionaire Jimmy James. And then Joe Rogan, he's also on that show before he became, Joe Rogan, the podcasting giant that he is today. So, and then just the slew of guest stars that came through that show when it's run was just pretty impressive too. You had Ben Stiller, and Jerry Seinfeld has a guest star, and Patrick Warburton has a 5-6 episode run in the 5th season, and which I was when they were talking about replacing Phil Hartman, he was the front runner for being put on the cast, and that would have been great. Like I say, John Lovitz was all right. I will say, I'll give him credit because they didn't try to make John Lovitz the focal, because granted, when Phil Hartman was still there, he was one of the stars. You have to kind of showcase the greatness that was Phil Hartman's Bill McNeil. And so when John Lovitz was added to the cast, he wasn't such a predominant cast member where his character would kind of drift in and out, and maybe had an episode or two where he was the main focus. But for the most part, they kind of knew where their bread was buttered, and it sure wasn't buttered with John Lovitz, I'll tell you that much. But so. But yeah, so there was 5 seasons of that where, like I say, Phil Hartman was able to be on the first 4, which, like I say, those are my definite favorites. I try to watch this. I bought this show on DVD. I try to purchase physical media because you never know when you can be able to find anything, for that matter. If it's not streaming, then there's no video stores anymore, so you can't rent that shit. So. Or you could buy it, and then for whatever reason, the whoever you bought it from can claim some sort of musical copyright or something and pull that away, and boom, you don't have it. So I'm an old-fashioned guy. I buy physical media. I have physical media players, and until all those disappear from the face of the earth, I'm going to continue buying physical media because then I can watch it whenever I want, and I don't care about music copyrights expiring or what have you, because you know what? I own it. So, but yeah, news radio, boom, there you go. Check it out. I was kind of debating about, I guess talking. I mean, you really can't talk about Phil Hartman without bringing up his passing. He was, for those that don't know, he was murdered by his wife while he was sleeping, which is, it's still kind of hard to think about, even though it's happened. 1998 was when that happened. I remember the day that I heard Phil Hartman was killed. It was kind of surreal. I wouldn't say. I mean, yeah, there's some sadness there. I mean, there's always sadness when someone that you really enjoy, a celebrity, I should say. I mean, I guess it'd be different than if it was an everyday acquaintance or family member or whatever. But for someone that I was a fan, that I liked, that I was a huge fan of, just to find out that his wife, I've watched a lot of things on it, and I haven't watched anything recently. From what I gathered, they didn't have the best of marriage. Well, that's not whatever it is. That's what I've heard, seen, and read about. So I'm probably not making up anything that hasn't also are already seen the light of day. But so just basically she went out and they got in a big old fight, and she kind of had a substance problem and got her hands on some substances, and then they had a huge fight, and he didn't want to fight anymore. He just wanted to go to bed, and so he goes to bed, and she, for whatever reason, we'll never know, decides to go into the room, and she shot him right between the eyes, and then she shot him in the throat, and then shot him in the chest. 38 caliber Smith & Wesson Model 15 revolver. And that right there, my friends, was the end of Phil Hartman. He was 49 years old, and it's always sad watching someone that you grow up get to that age. And by saying that, because now I'm older than he was, and so it's just always kind of like, wow, yeah, he only made it to 49, and I'll be 52 this year, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of unreal, but that's life. We all have a expiration date, and so let's not go down that dark and dirty road, but just to kind of, I guess, tie up the loose ends, after she shot him, she shot herself and killed herself. So, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. You can't bring them back. And I always think, well, if someone, well, I don't know, but I'll say it anyways. If someone really wanted to end something, they should just end it with themselves and not take someone out. But that's how I've always thought. And I know a lot of people are, it's a touchy subject, and that's fine. I get it. I just have different thoughts on this sort of stuff. But like I say, it's over. It's been over now for 27 years, and so it's safe to say that I was able to move on with my life. But like I say, I just wanted to do something to kind of show shed some light on someone that you really don't hear much about anymore. You don't see a lot of stuff with him. He, like I say, he had a pretty good guest starring career where he was in some of my favorite movies in the 80s. He had a little role in Fletch Lives. He was in Coneheads, which I saw Coneheads about a year or so ago for the first time. I remember, like, my buddies loved Coneheads, and they would always, quote Coneheads, and I always thought I saw Coneheads. For whatever reason, I missed Coneheads, and I had purchased a 3-movie pack, which I am very prone to do if I see one movie I like, and there's 2 others that are okay, and I'll go ahead and buy it. And so I really wanted Stuart Saves His Family. And I know. People are like, you own Stuart Saves His Family? And that movie made me laugh. I mean, it's not great, but I think I saw it at a pawn shop. And so my philosophy is if I see a 3-pack movie combo in a pawn shop and they only want $1.99, heck yeah, I'll throw $1.99 on Stuart Saves His Family. And I believe it came with Wayne's World, which I had already had a copy of, so got a backup. And then the Coneheads was in there. And as I'd mentioned, I thought I saw Coneheads, and so I was talking to someone, and they're like, oh, we're talking Coneheads. And kind of dawned on me, did I ever really see Coneheads? And so I go, I know I have it. And so one day I decided to kick back and pop in Coneheads and watch Coneheads. And yeah, I'd never seen Coneheads because I would have remembered that cocaine-fueled nightmare fueling whatever the fuck that movie was. That movie was bizarre. But Phil Hartman was in Coneheads, I guess is the long way around that one. And then if you'd ever seen So I Married an Axe Murderer, he was Vicky, one of the tour guides on Alcatraz, which was, like I say, it's another one of those movies. It's okay. It's not bad. But then when you see, holy shit, there's Phil Hartman. And then, not to mention, he is playing the straight lace, prison tourist guide. And then doing his nice little story about the inmates using the fresh meat as he does. I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to check it out, check it out. So, yeah. And then towards the end, he was also in Small Soldiers. And I remember the 1998 is when that one came out. I remember that they kind of had to change the scenes that he was in because in the movie, his character ends up getting shot by the toys. And of course, they don't want art imitating real life. And so they had to go and, I guess, edit that or do something around that where they didn't show him actually getting shot by the small toy. I don't remember. I saw that movie once or twice. I could never get into it. I enjoy those kind of movies, and I might have to go check it out again just because of Phil Hartman. But I don't want to watch everything too soon because once I've seen it all, then that's pretty much the end of that. So I did want to play a little sketch here. Let's see how far we can get away with that without drawing any red flags or anything. Because not only did he do the Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer on Saturday Night Live and the Anal Retentive Chef, he also did the President Clinton. He did a parody of that. He did a really good Frank Sinatra, and I was going through the Saturday Night Live YouTube channel, and one of my favorite sketches popped up with the Sinatra group, and we got Phil Hartman as the lead. He's Frank Sinatra, and the great Jan Hooks plays Sinead O'Connor. Sting is Billy Idol, and we got Chris Rock as Luther Campbell. I think that's who that was. The 2 Live Crew guy, I forget. And then Mike Myers and Victoria Jackson as Stephen Eady. So let me play some of this and see. Like I say, we'll see how far we get. And so
it's gonna be so easy for
The Sinatra Group, an unrehearsed discussion of current issues in the recording industry, with panelists Sinead O'Connor, Billy Idol, Two Live crew star Luther Campbell and Steve
Luther
Lawrence
Campbell,
and Edie
yeah.
Gourmet. And now here's the moderator, Frank Sinatra.
Issue number 1, censorship. They got the records with the labels now. People getting arrested. What the hell's going on? Sign 8 O'Connor.
Well, I think it's a bloody shame that freedom of expression is suppressed in this country.
Yap, yap, yap. Billy Idol.
We all think they're a bunch of tight arsehole farts.
Get a haircut. Luther Campbell.
Well, man, I had my runs with censorship all year.
Can't understand the word.
I said I was censored all year.
You don't know what censored is, Junior. Censored is getting dropped by Columbia because Mitch Miller doesn't like the way your career is going. It's having $1 million pipes and nowhere to play them. Am I right, Stephen Edie?
Yes, you are, Frank.
Absolutely, Frank.
You bet I am. Next issue. This crap with MTV, with the nudity and all. What is this crap? Sinbad O'Connor.
Yeah, Jen Hooks is another one that was one of my
Well, I
favorites.
think it's bloody awful, but it's typical of entertainment in a male-dominated society.
Boo-hoo. You had me and then you lost me. Billy Idol.
Well, I think it's great.
Shut up. Luther Campbell.
Well, that's my bread and butter, man.
Once more around, pal. It's all pops and buzzes from here.
I said that's my bread and butter, man.
No, you're wrong, schoolboy. You don't need to work blue. You'll never play the big rooms with that crap. Ask Red Fox. You don't need the blue stuff, kid. You got talent.
But I don't have any talent.
You got it, kid. Now, you listen to me. You got a Ben Vereen quality. I can't put my finger on it. Take the high road, baby.
Man, I swear, man, I don't have talent, man. I don't have none, man. This is all I got, man. Tell him, man. Tell him.
Yeah, he sucks.
He's not talented.
No, Bob Goulet. That's not talented. You got talent. You got a Dionne Warwick, Thalana kind of a thing going. Stephen Edie?
Oh, you're right, Frank.
Absolutely, he's great.
Of course he is, you brown noses. Look at you, you're just swimming in my wake. Issue number 3, the bald chick. What's with her head? Let's start with a chick. What gives, cue ball? I'm looking at you, I'm thinking 14 in the side pocket.
It's like you could see Jen
I
Hooks
can't
almost
believe you're
break
talking
on
about
this
my
one.
hair with all the bloody starvation and the suffering in the world right now.
Come on, swing, baby, you're platinum. Billy Idol.
Yeah, I think she's really quite attractive, actually.
Check his papers. Luther Campbell.
You wash it, mate.
Easy, baby. And what's with that sneering crap? Don't do that to the people. They want to like you. That's what killed Dennis Day. Contempt for the audience. All right, what about the chick's head, Luther?
Well, be honest, man, I don't care about the head. I like the butt.
I hear you, baby, loud and clear. Forget the head. Put a...
But yeah, there's a little Sinatra group sketch. If you're interested, I'd definitely go to the Saturday Night Live YouTube channel, and that's on there. But I just wanted to, play a little bit of Sinatra. It's probably, obviously, use your imagination because it's audio only. Duh, right, Tim? Yeah, we get it. But it's a very entertaining sketch. It's one of my favorites. Like, it was one of the first ones I remember actually remembering. It's got Sting as the host of the episode, and just Jan Hooks. And when you think when I think of Saturday Night Live, I always think of Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks. They were always so well positioned together. Like their comic timing, they were able to work very well off one another. Which, as you may or may not know, Jan Hooks did pass away from breast cancer a couple years ago, so she's also no longer with us. And it's just it's life. I mean, that's just how it is. It's as life goes on, you see your childhood comedians, your favorites. They just, like they say, it's no reason to take life too seriously because you know what, we're not going to make it out alive. But when they can leave behind these great sketches and this great body of work that fans such as myself are able to just sit back and watch and enjoy and just remember the good times, and that's what it's all about. But yeah, so that's like I say, I just wanted to try something new, shed some light, on a guy who probably doesn't get the credit that he should get. If you find anything from late 80s to the mid to end of the 90s, there's a pretty good chance he'll pop up in something. He had a little role in the National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, which, as far as spoof movies goes, that's probably one of my favorite spoof movies. And if anybody knows me, knows I'm a huge fan of good spoof movies. This one was a spoof of the Lethal Weapon series, and he was had a nice little 1-2 lines in this movie. But like I say, he makes them work, and he gives it his all. And so yeah, Lethal Weapon 1, Emilio Estevez and Samuel L. Jackson before he was Samuel L. Jackson. So it's a funny movie. And like I say, as far as good spoof movies goes, that's definitely one of them, because there's so much shit, so many bad spoof movies that kind of just takes the fun out of all the good ones, because you see one bad one, you think they're all going to be bad, but they're not. So it's like anything else. So, but I think that's all I have for, Phil Hartman right now, without going on and repeating things that have been said before. But if you enjoy this, or if this piqued your curiosity, definitely check out News Radio. I mean, I might end up starting that series again here real shortly, because it's, as I said, I try to do it annually, because it's one of those series that really doesn't have a bad episode. I mean, there's a couple that are kind of slow, but for the most part, the first 4 seasons I can definitely watch over and over again. I try not to, because I want to keep them new. I don't want to overkill them. And the 5th one's okay. I try to get that one out of the way early, just to get it out of the way, but it's all right. And then, of course, the first, I think, 6 or 7 episodes of The Simpsons, he was involved with those, and those are always fun, because I was a huge Simpsons fan when that came out, and now that they've been on for 8 million years, or however long it's been, I believe I've stopped watching them longer than I actually watched them the original run, and right now I've decided to go back and watch some of the earlier episodes, because it's been 20, 25 years, and it's one of those things. I knew he was on the show, and then when he did pop up, it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, Phil Hartman, right on, sweet. So that's a fun little remembrance of him at that time. And so, but yeah, so like I said, that's Phil Hartman. Just wanted to get him back out there, because he really is almost lost to time. So I think on our next episode we'll get back to form where we were. We'll see. And there's a couple other things I wanted to bring up here, but I definitely wanted to get to Phil Hartman in May, because that was when he was unfortunately taken from us. And so I've been Tim, and I just want to let you know that why don't you be kind out there? Why don't you rewind? Think of the next guy. Until next time.